The great hall was bigger than anything Park had ever seen. It stretched so far that he could not see the walls on either side. The ceiling showed moving stars from 10,000 different worlds. Everything was made to make visitors feel small, and it was working. Walk to the center of the hall where a small circle was marked on the floor. This was where new species had to stand when they asked to join the council. The circle was tiny on purpose. It was meant to remind newcomers that they were not important. Behind him stood 12 other humans. They wore their best clothes. They had practiced for months. Lieutenant stood closest to the ambassador. She kept her face calm even though her heart was beating fast. She could hear strange sounds coming from the seats above them. Thousands of aliens were watching, waiting, judging. Took a deep breath. He had one chance to do this right. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. His voice was clear and steady. A machine turned his words into sounds that every species could understand. "Humanity asks to join your great union. We request full membership with voting rights. We ask that you recognize our home system and our 17 colony worlds as our territory." For a moment there was silence. Then the laughter started. It began with They were creatures made mostly of gas, and when they laughed, it sounded like water bubbling through pipes. The sound spread quickly. The clicked their sharp mouth parts together in amusement. The released clouds of yellow dust from their bodies. This was how they showed they found something very funny. Did not move. Watched his back. She wanted to shout at them. She wanted to tell them that humans had worked so hard to get here, that they had spent decades building ships, that millions of people had sacrificed everything for this moment. But she stayed silent. They all did. High Arbiter sat on a throne in the center of the hall. He was very old and very powerful. His skin looked like cracked stone, gray and rough. He had 4 eyes that blinked one after another, never at the same time. When he raised his hand, the laughter slowly stopped. "Let me understand," said. His voice was deep and slow like rocks grinding together. "The humans have been in space for only 300 years. They do not have full drive technology. Their ships are slow, very slow. They take years to travel between stars." He paused and looked around the hall. "And they want to sit with us, as equals." The laughter came back, louder than before. Waited until it died down again. "High Arbiter, we have met every requirement in your founding charter. We have peaceful relations with our neighbors. We have a stable government. We have—" "You have met the minimum requirements," interrupted. He waved one of his 4 hands like he was brushing away an insect. "The charter also says that we can decide who joins and who does not. We decide now." He smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Come back in 1,000 years. Maybe then you will have something worth giving us." The delegation cheered. They were huge creatures covered in armor. They hit their chest plates with their fists to show they agreed with the decision. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. No one spoke for humans. Not one voice in the entire hall said that maybe they should be given a chance. Not one. The vote was quick. Every species voted no, every single one. Felt tears building in her eyes. She blinked them away. She would not cry in front of these creatures. She would not give them that satisfaction. Bowed, it was a human gesture, a sign of respect. None of the aliens knew what it meant. They probably thought he was just bending over. "Very well," he said quietly. "We understand." He turned and began walking toward the exit. The rest of the delegation followed him. Their footsteps were the only sound in the hall. The aliens had stopped laughing. They were watching now, curious about what these strange creatures would do. "Ambassador," called out. There was something mean in his voice, something that enjoyed causing pain. "Do not feel bad. This is simply how things work. The young must learn to be patient." Stopped walking. He did not turn around. "We have learned many things, High Arbiter," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "Patience is only one of them." He started walking again. The doors opened for him and his people. Then they closed with a soft sound. In the hall, the aliens started laughing again. They joked about the silly humans and their dreams. They talked about how funny it was that such a young species thought they deserved to stand among the great powers. But did not hear any of it. She was already outside, walking through empty corridors with the rest of her people. Said nothing until they reached their ship. Then he turned to face his team. His eyes were dry. His face showed no anger. That scared more than anything. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "Tell them what happened. Tell them everything." "What do we do now?" someone asked. Looked out the window at the massive station that housed the Galactic Council. Millions of aliens lived there. They controlled trade and war and science across the entire galaxy. They had all the power. "Now," he said slowly, "we go home and we remember." The ship undocked and began its long journey back to human space. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. But everyone was thinking the same thing. They would remember this day. They would remember the laughter. And someday, somehow, they would make sure the galaxy remembered too. The stars passed by the windows, cold and distant. Somewhere among them was Earth. Home. The place where humans had learned to walk, to talk, to dream of touching the sky. They had touched it. They had reached out to the universe and asked to be accepted. The universe had laughed. Now it was time to show the universe what humans did when they were laughed at. Not with anger, not with war, with something far more powerful. With silence. 6 months passed after the humans were sent away from the council. At first, nobody noticed anything different. Human ships were small and few. Human goods were simple things that most aliens bought as jokes or curiosities. Nobody important cared about humans. But then the reports started coming in. Trade Minister was the first to see the pattern. He was checking shipping records when he noticed something strange. Human merchant ships had stopped coming to council stations, all of them, at the same time. He sent a message to the human embassy on Station 14. The answer came back in one short line. "Humanity has left all council trade agreements. We wish you well." The next day, the embassy was empty. The human staff had packed everything and left without saying goodbye. The communication machines were turned off. The doors were locked. Minister told himself it did not matter. Humans were not important to galactic trade. Their goods were worth almost nothing. Their ships were too slow to compete with real trading companies. But he was wrong. Human ships had been doing small jobs that nobody else wanted to do. They carried medicine to poor colony worlds. They delivered farming tools to planets that could not afford fancy transport. They ran communication relays for dozens of small settlements. All of that stopped. On a world called Prime, Governor watched her security screens with growing fear. For years, human patrol ships had helped protect her sector from pirates. They never asked for payment. They never asked for thanks. They just did it because it was the right thing to do. Now those ships were gone. The pirates came back within 2 months. They attacked mining stations and cargo ships. They kidnapped people and demanded money. Governor asked the council for help. The council said her sector was not important enough. Help would come eventually, maybe in a few years. Watched her people suffer and wondered if the council even cared. In a laboratory far away, a scientist named Doctor was working on a cure for a terrible disease. The disease affected 3 different species. Millions of people were dying slowly and painfully. Had been close to finding a cure. He had been working with a human scientist named Bay. One morning received a message from, "I am sorry. I wish you success with your research. I cannot continue working with you." Tried to contact again. He sent messages every day for months. Every message received the same automatic reply. Humanity is not accepting communications from council species at this time. The research stopped. Without's help could not finish the cure. People kept dying. Did not understand. Had been his friend. They had worked together for 5 years. They had shared meals and jokes and dreams of saving lives. How could just walk away? But had not wanted to walk away. None of the humans had wanted to leave. They had been told to leave, and they had obeyed. Years passed. The silence continued. Some council members started to worry. They brought their concerns to High Arbiter. They told him about the trade problems, the pirate attacks, the failed research projects. Laughed at them. The humans are acting like children, he said. They did not get what they wanted, so now they are having a tantrum. They will come back. They need us more than we need them. The council members nodded and went back to their jobs. Was old and wise. Surely he knew what he was talking about. But the humans did not come back. 3 years passed, then 5, then 10. Human space was quiet. No ships came out. No messages were sent. When other species tried to enter human territory, they were stopped at the border. They were given food and fuel and politely asked to leave. Why? A trader asked a human border guard. Why will you not trade with us? Why will you not talk to us? The guard looked at him with eyes that showed no anger, no hate, nothing at all. We tried talking, the guard said. You laughed. The trader was sent away. He told everyone he knew about what the human had said. The story spread across the galaxy. Other aliens started asking questions. What exactly had happened at the council? Why were humans so angry? The recording of the petition was found and shared. Millions of beings watched it. They saw the laughing. They saw the mockery. They saw dismiss an entire species like they were nothing. Some aliens felt ashamed. They had not laughed themselves, but they had done nothing to stop it. Others did not care. Humans were still young and weak. Who cared if they were upset? But a few wise beings looked at the silence and felt something cold in their hearts. They remembered an old saying from a species long extinct. Fear the anger of a patient man. Humans were being patient, very patient. And somewhere in their quiet space, behind their closed borders, they were growing stronger, building, learning, preparing. For what, nobody knew. But the silence was louder than any scream, and with each passing year, it grew louder still. In his throne room celebrated another birthday. He was very old now, but still powerful, still confident, still certain that he had done the right thing. He would die believing that. He would never know how wrong he was. 12 years after the petition, war came to the galaxy. The Imperium had always been aggressive. They were the ones who had cheered loudest when humans were rejected. They were the ones who hit their chest plates and celebrated the humiliation of a young species. Now they wanted more than celebration. They wanted conquest. Their warships attacked 3 systems at once. Millions died in the first week. The council tried to organize a defense, but it was too slow. Politicians argued while planets burned. By the time the council fleet was ready, they had already taken what they wanted. The war dragged on for months. Neither side could win. Both sides kept losing ships and soldiers. The galaxy was bleeding. In desperation, the council decided to ask for help from the only species that had stayed out of the fighting. Humanity. A delegation of 5 council diplomats traveled to human space. They were nervous. No outsider had been allowed past the border in 12 years, but when they asked for permission to enter, the humans said yes. They were taken to a station orbiting Titan, one of the moons of a gas giant in the human home system. The station was huge, much bigger than anything the council had expected. Through the windows, the diplomats could see warships floating in neat rows, hundreds of them, ships that looked fast and deadly. Ships that had not existed 12 years ago. Ambassador met them in a simple room with white walls and a round table. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She did not smile when they entered. "Thank you for seeing us," the lead diplomat said. He was with clicking mouth parts that made his nervousness obvious. "The council appreciates." "What do you want?" interrupted. Her voice was soft but firm. The diplomat took a moment to recover. "The threaten all of us. The war grows worse each day. The Council believes that with humanity's help we could end the fighting quickly. We request." "No." The word hung in the air like a stone. "Ambassador, please, if you would just listen." "I have listened," folded her hands on the table. 12 years ago, my people came to you with respect and hope. We asked to join your community. We offered friendship and cooperation." "Ambassador, the past." "The past is exactly why we are having this conversation." She gestured toward the window and the warships beyond. "Do you know what we have done in 12 years? We have united all our colonies under one government. We have invented faster-than-light travel using our own science, without any help from the Council. We have built a fleet that can protect every human world." She leaned forward slightly. "We have learned that we do not need you." The diplomats looked at each other. They had expected anger. They could have dealt with anger. Angry people could be calmed down. They could be bargained with. But was not angry. She was simply stating facts. That was much worse. "Surely there is something you want," the lead diplomat tried. "Trade agreements, technology exchange. We could offer recognition, full membership with all rights." "You offered us nothing 12 years ago. We wanted nothing then but a chance to prove ourselves. You laughed at us instead, stood up. Now we want even less from you. We want to be left alone." "Ambassador, the will not stop with the Council. Eventually they will come for you too." "Let them come." For the first time, something like emotion flickered across her face. It might have been amusement. "We have prepared for that possibility." She walked toward the door. The meeting was clearly over. "Wait," the lead diplomat called out. "Please, millions are dying. Can you not find it in yourself to help just because of what happened in the past?" Stopped, she turned around slowly. "When we stood before you and asked for help joining the galactic community, how many voices spoke for us?" She waited. The diplomats said nothing. None. Not one species out of thousands said we deserved a chance. Not one. She opened the door. "Your High Arbiter told us to come back in 1,000 years. Perhaps in 1,000 years we will consider your request. Until then his wisdom stands. The young must learn patience." She left, the door closed behind her. The diplomats sat in silence for a long time. Finally, one of them spoke. "What do we tell the Council?" The lead diplomat looked out the window at the human warships. So many of them. So much power that the Council had not known existed. "We tell them the truth," he said. "We tell them that the humans remember everything, and they have decided that we are not worth saving." The delegation returned to Council space with nothing. The war continued. More planets fell. More people died. And in human space the silence continued. The borders stayed closed. The ships stayed hidden. But they were watching, always watching. Waiting for the galaxy to learn what they had learned long ago. That respect is not given, it is earned. And those who refuse to give it should not expect to receive it. 30 years had passed since the petition. The galaxy was falling apart. The war with it had ended, but not with victory. Both sides had simply run out of strength to fight. 3 entire species had died during the conflict. Their planets were empty now. Their cultures were gone forever. Only records and memories remained. The great trade routes that had connected thousands of worlds were broken. Different regions used different money. Ships that once traveled freely now needed special permission to cross borders. The economy that had taken millions of years to build collapsed in just 3 decades. Through all of this, humanity stayed silent. They traded with no one. They allied with no one. When other species sent messages, they received the same answer every time. Humanity is not accepting communications from Council species at this time. Some aliens tried to escape the chaos by fleeing toward human space. They hoped that humans would take them in, give them safety, give them a new home. Human ships met them at the border. They gave the refugees food and water and medicine. They fixed their broken ships. They were kind and helpful. Then they sent them back. Please, a mother begged a human officer. She held her child in her arms. My world is dying. My family has nowhere to go. Have you no mercy? The officer looked at her with sad eyes. I am sorry, I truly am, but our orders are clear. No outsiders allowed. But why? We have done nothing to hurt you. The officer was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke softly. 30 years ago, my grandmother stood in a great hall and asked your people for a chance. Just a chance to prove ourselves. Do you know what happened? The mother shook her head. They laughed at her. Every species in that hall laughed. Your people too. He helped her back onto her ship. He gave her extra supplies for the journey. His hands were gentle. His voice was kind. But his answer was still no. On a research station orbiting a moon called Ganymede, a young scientist named Han was reading reports from the refugee ships. She was 25 years old. She had been born after the silence began. She had never known a time when humans talked to other species. Her supervisor-director noticed that she seemed troubled. What is bothering you? He asked. Those people out there, said. They are suffering. We have so much. We could help them. We could, agreed. He walked to a display screen and brought up an old recording. Have you seen this? Watched. She saw a human man standing in a circle while thousands of aliens laughed at him. She saw the mockery, the cruelty, the joy that the aliens took in humiliating her people. She had seen the recording before. Everyone had. It was shown in schools. It was discussed in homes. It was the reason for everything. I know what they did, said, but that was 30 years ago. Most of those aliens are dead now. The ones suffering today did not laugh at us. No, said, but they are part of the same community that laughed. They benefited from the same system that rejected us. They did nothing to change it. So we punish them forever. Did not answer right away. He looked out the window at the stars. I do not know, he finally said. I truly do not know, but that is not my decision to make, or yours. Far away in council space, the remaining powers watched humanity's borders with growing fear. Their spies had gathered information. What they learned kept them awake at night. Human technology had advanced faster than anyone thought possible. Their ships could now travel between stars in days instead of years. Their weapons could destroy fleets. Their population was growing. Their economy was booming. They had become a superpower without anyone noticing. And still they would not speak. The new High Arbiter was a young named. She had been a child when the petition happened. She had read about it in history books. She had seen the recording. She felt shame for what her people had done. She stood before what remained of the council. Fewer than half the original members were still alive as species. The great hall felt empty. We made a terrible mistake, she said. Her voice was heavy with grief. We were proud. We were cruel. We treated a young species with contempt instead of kindness, and now we face the result. She paused to catch her breath. Speaking was difficult for her kind as they grew older. The humans do not hate us. That would be easier to deal with. We could fight hate. We could negotiate with hate, but what they feel is worse than hate. She looked around the hall at the tired, frightened faces of the survivors. They feel nothing. They have simply decided that we do not matter, and that is our punishment, not war, not revenge, just silence, just being ignored, just watching them grow stronger while we fall apart. No one spoke. What could they say? 30 years ago, they had laughed at humanity. Now the universe was laughing at them. And somewhere behind closed borders the humans continued building, growing, preparing, not for war, not for revenge. For something else, something that would take another 70 years to reveal itself. The galaxy would wait. They had no choice. Humanity had learned patience. Now the galaxy would learn it too. 100 years had passed since the day humanity was laughed out of the council hall. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The great council that once ruled thousands of worlds now controlled only a few hundred. Wars and disease and economic collapse had destroyed everything. Species that had lived for millions of years were now extinct. Cities that had once held billions were now empty ruins. And then, without warning, a human ship appeared at the Galactic Assembly Hall. It was not like the slow, small vessels that had carried Ambassador Park a century ago. This ship moved through space in ways that the remaining council scientists could not understand. It simply appeared, as if it had stepped from one place to another like walking through a door. The news spread quickly. After 100 years of silence, the humans were back. Ambassador walked through the corridors of the assembly hall. She was young, barely 40 years old, with sharp eyes and a calm face. Her grandmother's grandmother had been lieutenant, who had stood behind Ambassador on that terrible day. The family had passed down the memory. Every generation had learned the story. Every generation had carried the weight of that humiliation. Now would write the ending. The great hall was almost empty. Only 43 species remained. They sat in seats that had once held thousands. The walls were cracked. The ceiling display that had shown the stars of 10,000 worlds now flickered and sparked. Everything was broken. High Arbiter was very old. She could barely move without the help of a mechanical suit. Her gas-filled body was thin and weak, but she had insisted on being here. She had waited 30 years for this moment. Ambassador said, her voice came through speakers in her suit. "We welcome humanity. Whatever you wish to say, we will listen." Walk to the center of the hall. The petitioner's circle had been made bigger over the years, a small gesture of respect that had come far too late. She stood in that circle and looked around at the frightened faces of the survivors. 100 years ago, she began, my ancestor stood in this exact place. She watched your people laugh at us. She watched you mock our dreams and dismiss our hopes. She carried that memory until the day she died, and she passed it to her children who passed it to theirs. Lowered her head. Ambassador, if there is anything we can do. There is nothing you can offer us. His voice was not angry. It was simply honest. We do not need your technology. Ours is better. We do not need your trade. Our economy is larger than yours ever was. We do not need your military protection. Our fleet could destroy everything you have left without losing a single ship. The remaining council members trembled. They had feared this moment. They had imagined human warships coming to take revenge, fire and death and destruction. But continued, we did not come to hurt you. We did not come to conquer you. We did not come to gloat or mock or laugh. She paused. For the first time, something warm entered her eyes. We came because the silence has lasted long enough. She held up a small crystal that contained data, such a simple thing. It fit in the palm of her hand. This contains our offer to the galactic community, trade agreements that will help rebuild your economies, scientific knowledge that will cure diseases and solve problems you have struggled with for centuries, security guarantees that will protect your worlds from any threat. His mechanical suit hissed as she leaned forward. You would help us, after everything we did. You taught us a lesson 100 years ago, said. It was a hard lesson, a painful one, but we learned it well. We learned patience. We learned to rely on ourselves. We learned that we did not need anyone else to make us strong. She placed the crystal on the petitioner's platform. Now we will teach you something in return. What? Asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. That the true measure of a people is not how they treat those who can give them something. It is how they treat those who cannot. Stepped back from the platform. 100 years ago, we could give you nothing. We were young and weak and poor. You laughed at us. Today, you can give us nothing. You are broken and dying and desperate. She smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was almost gentle. We will not laugh, we will help, because that is who we are. That is who we have always been. You just never gave us a chance to show you." She turned and walked toward the exit, just as her ancestors had done 100 years before. But this time, she stopped at the door. "You have 1 year to respond to our offer. Take the time you need. Think carefully. Discuss it among yourselves." The gentle smile returned. After all, the young must learn patience. The doors closed behind her. In the hall, no one moved for a long time. The crystal sat on the platform, glowing softly. Inside it was the promise of a future, trade, knowledge, protection, everything the galaxy needed to survive. Finally moved. With trembling limbs, she reached for the crystal. She held it up to her eyes. "We were so wrong," she whispered. "So terribly, terribly wrong." Outside, among the stars, Ambassador returned to her ship. She stood at the window and looked at the ancient station that had witnessed her people's greatest humiliation. Her communicator buzzed. It was a message from home. "Well," the voice asked, "how did it go?" Thought about the frightened faces in the hall, the broken walls, the empty seats, 100 years of suffering caused by a single moment of cruelty. "They listen," she said. "I think they finally understand. And if they refuse? Watch the stars, so many of them, so much possibility." "Then we wait. We are very good at waiting," she smiled. "They taught us that." The ship turned and slipped away through folded space. In moments, it was gone. But humanity's message remained. A crystal full of hope. A second chance for a galaxy that had refused to give one. Because in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Not destruction, not conquest, not cruelty. Kindness. The kind of kindness that makes your enemies realize they were never your enemies at all. They were just people who had not yet learned how to be kind themselves. And now, after 100 years of silence, humanity was ready to teach them.